We've had some gusty winds and we've had some rain coming down that at times is kind of steady. And again, I think probably the more pressing thing would be is if you're on these rural roads, Telfair, Wheeler counties, places like that where we have a flash flood warning in place here, places that are susceptible to flooding, you know, regardless of a tropical system. It could just be from the storms we had yesterday. I mean, you know those places if you're in that area. Just stay away from those, be smart, turn around, don't drown, that whole thing. But as far as anything wind related outside of that, not seeing any real problems. I would kind of stick with Jamie's words on that though. If you don't have to be out, don't be out, just in case we do have some saturated ground and there's a weak tree or old trees or something like that that want to come over, because then sometimes you end up with blocked roadways and things like that, and they got to get out and try to, you know, clean all this stuff up, and fewer people the better. Give this another few hours and a lot of this is going to start to pull on out. Once again, Statesboro to show you here. This gives you an idea of that northeast quadrant. So if this is the center of circulation going northeast and then over in these outer bands, that's where you're going to get the severe potential, maybe some spin up stuff, some tornado warnings, and that's where we're seeing it. We do not expect to see that here. What you're seeing now is what we expect to see as we go through the rest of the afternoon, with eventually all of this kind of pulling away. Let me show you the bigger picture here, and you can kind of get an idea of the let's see, that's the bigger picture, but I wanted the really big picture. Where is that one? Here it is. So you can see again these outside bands, and we've been on that side of the storm many times before. If you have one that goes over through southwest Georgia, Alabama, puts us on the dirty side. We may not be looking so much for the wind in the center of the storm, but all the drama that can be on these outside bands there. So that's what they have going in the Carolinas and even in east central Georgia. So the center of circulation has been coming through Waycross. So when you look at it here and you think, oh, okay, well, this is starting to get closer to our southeastern counties, so the winds may pick up some. They could a little bit, but also keep in mind this storm is steadily weakening as it's moving northeast. So technically, it is still a very low-end Category 1 hurricane, but not far from, and the next advisory will probably tell us, from being a high-end tropical storm that eventually will also whittle down through those numbers as well. So just talking about those numbers, 25, again, so the number in white, that's your steady wind, kind of just a normal wind, sort of steady. And then the yellow is going to be an occasional wind gust that these sensors will pick up and say, hey, that was a little bit more than a steady wind. Let's write that one down. So they'll say 33, so that's an occasional gust that's kind of showing up more than the usual. And so as we look at 25, 30, 35, totally doable. That's not even tropical storm force winds. So again, the only one that we've had technically on paper is that 40-mile-per-hour one in Eastman a little while ago. Again, not trying to downplay the whole thing, but I know a lot of folks, you know, kind of get a little bit weary when it comes to weather, and they see the tropical thing, and it's like, most of this is just not that bad. I mean, it's just a little bit of wind and some rain. Actually, the storms we had yesterday, in many cases, were stronger than this. So again, a severe thunderstorm warning, minimum criteria is like 58 miles an hour. And we've had storms this summer, 60, 65, 70 mile per hour wind gusts with that. So again, overall, not bad. But as you go farther toward the north and west, totally not bad. Then you're looking at maybe not even a breeze and just a few sprinkles. So that's our area. As we look over towards southeast Georgia, even these numbers have come down a pretty good bit. St. Simon showing up at 56 on a wind gust there. And of course, what they have to look out for on coastal parts of our state is when it gets high tide later. And you're talking about a big full moon, which is already going to be a bigger tide. So then, you know, have to see what that does for any sort of flooding along our coast here. We'll figure that out as we get closer. But these numbers have come down from 50 to 40 on down into the 30-something range here. Now, Fitzgerald's still wanting to show off at over 45 miles per hour on the gust there. So even if you get closer to the center, the occasional gusts that we're seeing, not terrible. I'm sure there are some down there that are like, well, it kind of gets your attention a little bit. But as far as our area is concerned, not that bad. Once again, tropical storm warnings are still in place. But when you look at that, don't think way up 70 miles per hour. Think the lower end of tropical storm force winds, which is like 39. All right. So, and again, sometimes even on a fall front day, that's a dry front coming through. We easily can hit those kind of wind speeds. So it's all relative to the, you know, you see the tropical thing and we see the sky out there. So 30, 35 just seems like more, but we do that on normal days a lot. So anyway, the tropical storm warning is there, and obviously farther south and east, it becomes a little bit more relevant. So as far as the rain is concerned in our western counties, I expect this to stay kind of going like this as we go through the next couple hours and then start to taper off as everything continues to slide toward the east and northeast. So we should start to see, not maybe a full cutoff, but again, just down to just a few sprinkles if you're out on the road, intermittent wipers every once in a while. Once you go east of 75 in our eastern half here. This is where the rain will probably stay steady. Obviously, even our southeastern counties until this starts to pull away. Jordan, you want to jump in here? You were talking about, as you know, we're looking ahead for the rest of tonight too.
That is right, and it looks like, I think, this will be the most severe we get, and we're not really much severe at all. The wind speed's only getting up to 40 miles per hour, and that's really just wind gusts. But I think within the hour, it's 2:38 now, so by 3 o'clock, I think that will definitely see a downward turn in terms of the severe aspects. So winds, up to maybe 50 miles per hour as we head over the next hour. If that rainfall still going to be there at least up until the next hour, a couple hours even. And then once again, like Ben was saying earlier, the tornado threat is very low. Tornadoes are typically situated in the northeastern quadrant of the system. As it moves, that would be far east of central Georgia. So that's something we don't have to worry about, thankfully. And once all of the system kind of makes its way eastward for any outlying power outages, that's when they're able to come in and actually restore those power outages for places across southern Georgia. But looking at the future view now, this is 3 p.m. You can see it's still a Category 1 hurricane, but most of the rain for our western counties are starting to dissipate. Now moving into 5 p.m. Looks like most of the storm is just to the east now, and let's back that up one more time real quick. Oop, there we go. It looks like by 7 p.m. we are all good to go. That cold front is going to sweep on through, has a lot of shear with it, it's going to tear the storm apart just a little bit as it makes its way eastward. And while the storm is over land, there's nothing fueling it. So it's going to, we're on the downward turn from here on out, and that's for just about all of the southeast. And then by 3 a.m., looks like we are nice and good still. As we head into the weekend, clear and dry for the most part. So I think we are looking pretty good. And a few things from the Telfair County EMA. Looks like there is a tree down on power line 41 White Bluff Road in Lumber City. We got a tree on power line at 165 East River Road, Jacksonville, Georgia. A tree down on the power line, Highway 117 in Jacksonville. And then it looks like there's another one near Marchant Dairy Road in Milan. So I know wind speeds aren't as strong as what they could be, but because of the saturated water or saturated ground that we already have right now, some of the trees could be a little bit on the weaker side. So it's something we do have to watch out for as we head into the remainder or next hour, I'll say. But back to you, Ben.
All right, Jordan, I appreciate that. All right, guys in the booth, are we doing this?